Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Dutchy Gaming and the fifth episode of the Tornado Shot SSF playthrough. Got quite a lot to cover in this episode. Just to very quickly recap, in the last episode, I pretty much cleared my atlas. I had a couple of maps left to do and a few unique maps left to find. So we're now in a position where we need to decide what sort of tier content we want to run and do we need to switch up the atlas tree a little bit. So the first thing I'm just going to cover off is the content that we're going to go through in this episode. Firstly, there are going to be some changes to the Atlas tree, and it's likely that every 2 or 3 episodes we switch the Atlas tree up because we might need to target different content. Going to cover all of that in detail in a little while. We're going to look at farming some Eldritch Embers and Icors. We need to get some decent implicits on our gear to help us out. Red maps are still not super comfy, but we should be able to complete enough to be able to get some Embers and Icors to help get our gear a little bit better. I'm going to talk about my long-term gear improvements. My character at the moment, I don't think I can get much better with rod crafting or just finding stuff on the ground. So I need to look at what my long-term goals are for my gear, what items give me the most benefit, and what content do I need to farm to be able to craft those items. I'm going to talk about harvest and essences, which we're going to move on to in the Atlas tree because that's what we're going to be moving towards for our gear. Going to also spend a little bit of time talking about yellow maps versus red maps. Just because you've cleared your atlas does not mean you need to farm red maps. This isn't trade. SSF works very differently, and again, we're going to go over that in more detail. Going to run through some loot that I got from expedition logbooks and just talk about my general experience running them. Now my character's a little bit better. Also going to talk about some notable drops and moments throughout the episode. So the first thing we'll move on to is the atlas tree. So I farmed my last few 3-ways, got another Lethal Pride. It's still not very good, but it's slightly better than my old one. At this point, other than target farming those Legion jewels, there's not much more I can do. I've got loads of incubators. I've got a 6-link. I don't really need Legion anymore, so I'm dropping Legion to put in essences and then some Exarch nodes to get more loot from the altars. So this tree is purely essence and harvest, along with some map nodes, blockers, and then the Exarch nodes. So we're going to talk about why we've changed the tree in a little while. Firstly, I wanted to talk about yellow versus red maps. So I touched on earlier, SSF is a totally different way of playing compared to trade. Not just because you can't trade, but because you don't need to rush to content. You can't sell any of the loot, so you only want to do content that's going to improve your character. There's no point forcing yourself through content if your character's not quite up to it, because you're not really achieving anything. You're only going to be able to push so far before you need to look at your character. So you need to look at what content can I farm the quickest and most efficiently that's still going to get me the crafting materials that I need to get my build better. The reason I've gone essences and harvest, essences doesn't seem to change per map tier. You can go into a tier 1 map and get shrieking essences, or you can go into a tier 16 map and get shrieking essences. Essences are also very hard in red maps. If you are chiseling and alching your maps, essences can be super, super tough. Harvest is not actually that much different in yellow maps or red maps. You get a tiny little bit less harvest life force, and it does seem that you get slightly less T3 seeds, but you can complete the maps much quicker. And let's say you're not quite comfy in red maps, so you have to run the magic or be really careful about how you alch them. You're actually better off just alch and going. In yellow maps, you'll end up with more loot out of it and you'll complete the maps quicker. Now, red maps do have benefits. Exarch fights and altars are a massive bonus for doing red maps, but we're not selling anything. We're not selling the boss keys, and we're not selling any of the loot that comes from the altars. So unless you desperately need stuff in this, you do not have to run red maps just because you've unlocked your atlas. And what content you run depends on how your build feels. There is no point running red maps if it takes 6 minutes if you could run a yellow map in 3 minutes, because in that time, you could run way more yellow maps and get way more loot, especially if you run in a similar tree with harvest and essences. So think of SSF more as a project. Have goals that you want to set and what you need to do to meet those goals. So what's going to help you progress your build quicker to meet the goals that you've set. So I thought before we continue with the episode, I would just run through my atlas because I actually managed to get Coward's Trial. Getting those carrot nodes paid off, I actually ended up getting it from a white mission. So I only have one map left to do, which is Putrid Cloister, which is where the multi-mod recipe lies. And I'm sure at some point I'll get it. It's definitely not as rare as Coward's Trial. So I've got one map left for completion, essentially. In terms of Maven, I need to do the 10 boss invitation, and then all my points are just from invitations and big encounters. In terms of favorite slots, I still need to do Cirrus, Cortex, Shaper, Elder, Maven, and the Feared. Cortex, I did actually get one offered to me by Kirak. Unfortunately, it was something like 66% more monster life and more monster crit. I very nearly did it, but this was when my character was much worse than it is at the moment. I died with him having about 15% health, so I was very close, but I'm sure we'll get it at some point. So I thought we'd just run a really quick map showcase. Now, I'm recording this before the next episode, and I've actually changed my Atlas tree to Ritual because it's what I'm going to try and farm next. Yes, I know, I'm probably an idiot. So I'm not going to interact with Ritual if it turns up, but I will interact with Harvest. It's just to give you an idea of what the build feels like at this stage, because I want to show a general map showcase every episode so you can see how the build's progressing. Like, I do still die fairly regularly, but I have made a few changes to the build, which we'll come on to after I've cleared the map. I'm not looking at Exarch altars at all. Just turn this down a tiny bit. I'm not looking at Exarch altars. I'm just clicking them as long as they're minion ones, because if I die, I die. I've leveled up to 95. I have no need to get any further than that. I've got all the points that I need. So yeah, any Exarch altars, I'm just clicking to get the loot from them. Okay, so I've got a harvest. So I think what we'll do is we will find the boss, we'll kill the boss, and then we'll go and do harvest. We'll do the essence monster as well. That was close to dying, didn't see those. Now, I am notoriously bad at finding the boss in this map. I know I've got to look for a tent. So we'll probably end up clearing the whole map anyway. And then we'll go and do a quick harvest. And then we'll move on and I'll explain what I'm doing with my harvest and essences to help me craft my items. Oh, the boss is here. There he is. Okay, so we'll quickly go and do the harvest. So we'll just do a couple of T3 plants. Now, I have died to a few harvest ones. I feel like that's not on attack without moving. It isn't. Okay. So as you see, in red maps, it's definitely worth doing if you can get through the maps comfortably. But if you can't, there's no issue with dropping back to yellow maps to do your harvest. So we'll do one more of these and then we'll jump back in. And I'll talk a bit more about essence and harvest. It took a little while to die. So yeah, you can see the build is much more comfy than it was. So what we'll quickly do is just go over the changes that I've made and just the gear that I've got. And most of it is Rob crafted. So the first one we'll go through is the bow that I missed my unveil on. I basically did prefixes cannot be changed and then crafted damage per charge because that blocks the most of the unveils. And I was just hoping for crit or attack speed. And yeah, as you can see, we didn't get it. The only thing I could take really out of here is attack speed while a rare or unique enemy is nearby. And then I'll recraft the crit mod. So it isn't the worst thing in the world because of bossing like Exarch and things like that. I do get really, really big boost to attack speed. However, I don't think this is local attack speed. I think it's global attack speed. So it's not quite as good as having the attack speed on the bow itself. I realise I've not really gone over my gear and gem links for a couple of episodes now. So rather than just say go to the POE, there's some people that don't have access to it or it's a bit lazy on my part. So I'll go over all of the gear now quickly and then we'll go over the gem links as well. So in terms of gem links, it's Tornado Shot, GMP, Inspiration and LE damage, and then Trinity and crit damage. And then it's just the 5-link ballista at the moment, which is Tornado Shot, GMP, Focus Ballista, Inspiration, and Ballista support. In my helmet, I have Blood Rage, Flame Dash, Haste, I'm just using the Vial section, and then a Molten Shell, which I've got on left click. In the gloves, we've got a Sniper's Mark, Mark on hit with Life Tap, and then Defiance Banner. And then we have an Enlighten level 3 linked to Hatred, Determination, and Precision. If you don't have an Enlighten, you would just not run the Defiance Banner. In terms of gear, the chest piece is the chest piece I've been running for a while. It's a 6-link Astral Plate. This could definitely be recrafted, but I don't want to go messing around with my gear at the moment because we've got another chest in the pipeline. The helmet is a very decent bog standard helmet. Huge life, fire, cold, and chaos resistance. And then the implicits are mana cost and penetrates lightning resistance. The lightning resistance one is not brilliant, but I don't have any Eldritch Eye cores to be able to re-roll it. The amulet is a negate amulet with high voltage anointed just to get more crit chance. And it's not bad. It's got crit multi, tiny bit of life, resistance, and LE damage with attacks. The quiver we've been through is huge. It's rod crafted, T1 nearly all over the place. Ideally, I would like this to have the crit and frenzy mod on it, but it has got 3 very good suffixes. Attack speed, which I lack on my bow, so the more I can get the better. Prod speed and crit multi. Go for the rings. This ring I've had for absolute ages. This is definitely a candidate for a replacement. I just haven't found a ring that's any good yet. And then this ring is very, very good. So it doesn't have life on it, but it's got big strength, huge cold and chaos resistance, T1 LE damage with attacks, and I can craft the non-channeling skills on it. My life is still over 4k, so I don't feel like I need life on this item. And overall, it offers a lot to the build. So this is a bow I tried to recraft with a Veil Chaos and went wrong. So it's not amazing, but it does the job for now. The gloves are nothing special, but they are big resistances. So I've got attack speed and increased effective marks as the implicits. Crafted some attack speed, and then yeah, big res and life. The boots are really, really good. A 35% movement speed, 2 huge resistances, massive life, dexterity, and big evasion. If it wasn't the fact that I might need to get ailment avoidance on boots, these would be with me forever. And then the belt I definitely need to recraft, but haven't found a second Stygian yet. It's pretty bad. It's life, very bad fire resistance, and crafted armor and evasion. So I'm just going to talk through the reason for essences and harvest. Harvest is there because there are lots and lots of good stuff you can do with the harvest life force. You can re-roll stuff like essences, delirium orbs. You can obviously use them to try and craft items. And then once you get a lot of life force, then you can start doing some of the big crafts. The idea is that this bow would be the project for the league because it's fractured fires and additional arrow ivory bow. It's not the best base, but it's the same archetype as spine bow. It just has slightly less physical damage. What I was looking to do was roll with the LE attack essences until I get 3 elemental damage prefixes. One is obviously forced on with the essence. Then we need to do either some Ashen or some harvest rerolls to get the attack speed and crit. But it's something that I did in trade, and it cost a lot of divines to get in the end and a lot of essences. Now, for some reason, I thought that it was like 100 essences to hit this, but if we bring Craft of Exile across, even if I just put that I want tier 4 or above cold and fire, it's 306 essences on average to hit it. I really don't want to be doing that because if I do hit the bog standard T4 and T4, it's actually probably not any better than the bow I've already got. So we're scrapping the idea for this bow. This is no longer going to be crafted on. So I think the idea is we stick with this bow. It does still need finishing off with attack speed and crit. So I think all we're going to do from here is we're going to save up 4 divines, which is what I should have done in the first place. We're going to prefix this cannot be changed scour, then we're going to multi-mod, and then we're going to do attack speed and crit and strength and intelligence. I probably got greedy last time trying to do it with 2 divines. I should have just saved up the 4. But I'm pretty sure we'll get 4 divines fairly quickly doing the lead mechanic. So this is going to be the bow that I'm going to use for the whole series. There's no way I'm going to have enough time to get better than this realistically. So the reason for essences is because of harvest combined, you can re-roll into different essences. So a lot of the essences you get are really not very usable for this build. So like you get ones here, like Deafening Essences of Fear. Things like Deafening Essences of Suffering are not that great. You can roll LE damage on jewelry, but it's not particularly amazing. So what we're going to do is use Harvest to re-roll these essences into ones that we can use to craft gear. So we are still going to look to craft a better bow, but we need a fractured elemental damage base. I found a couple in trade, so it's not something I'm totally writing off, but it's something that might not happen. But if it does, I want lots of elemental essences ready to use on them. The boots, even though I do love these boots, 35% movement speed, lots of stuff that we'll go through in a bit. I do want to get ailment immune, and to do it, we're going to need Deafening Essences of Loathing. And as you can see, I've already saved up 8. So all I'm doing with my blue essences is I'm re-rolling Deli Orbs when I get them, and I'm re-rolling essences. It only costs 30 per essence to re-roll it. And essentially, there's lots of different ones that would be good. Greed, I'd be happy with because it's life. Loathing for the ailment immunity. Any of the 3 LE damage ones are good. So we've got 5 essences that we would be happy with. So there, that one's rolled Deafening Essence of Hatred. We can use that. We'll now put in the Suffering. We'll start re-rolling it. Zeal is potential for movement speed, but that's only going to work if we get some other magical way to get ailment immune. And it is something I do want on the build at some point. Woe is not too bad for quivers, but we've got a lot of good quivers. We'll go over the quiver I was using when the first part of this video was recorded because it's slightly different to this and it is better. The reason I'm running this quiver now is because I don't want to have to use Blood Rage. when it's in combination with things like take more damage over time and you're cursed, you lose lots and lots of health really, really quickly. So I'd rather just not to worry about Blood Rage. So we're running a slightly suboptimal quiver. So when we go through the gear next, I do have a different quiver on. So I reroll again. Misery's not something I'm interested in. We've got Woe again. Doubt. So it can take a few to roll, but we're going to have loads of blue life force anyway. So there we go. We've got Wrath because there are 4 that we can hit that I'll be happy with, or 5 essentially. So we would want Greed, any of the early damage ones, and Loathing. So there are obviously a lot of essences you can roll, but it probably looks like about a 1 in 4, 1 in 5 to turn it into an essence we can use. So we're going to have plenty of blue Harvest life force. Then the yellow life force we could use to gamble divination cards. We can use for big crafts at the end. And then the purple, I'm sure we can find some use to it as well. But most of the Harvest life force is going to be used to change something from one thing to another. So we'll go through my plans for the rest of my upgrades. So my chest is not good enough, but at the moment it's the only decent 6-link that I have. But that is something that I want to replace. So we now have about 800 fusions if we sold our jewelers. So we'll have enough to link by the time we need to get a decent chest. So if we go into ROG, this is the chest I'm going to be looking at. So at the moment it's full. It's unfortunately got quite a bad suffix in stun and block recovery, but it's got T1 cold resistance and T1 suppression, T1 life. And then what we want to do is try and remove the evasion, either of the hybrid evasion mods. So we're going to do it by hopefully getting some Eldritch annulments. So when the Syrian Exarch is dominant, it affects the prefixes. So we would just put a Syrian Exarch orb on here. Using annulment, we've got a 2 in 3 chance of not removing the big life. If we remove the big life, it's still something we could craft with, but we might change how we craft it. And it would probably be suffixes cannot be changed, and then Veiled Chaos, and hope to get ailment immune or percentage life and percentage mana, and then we can craft life on top. That would also be a really good outcome. So I think no matter what happens, this chest is going to be my end game chest. I would hope that I just annul off one of the prefixes and then I can just craft elite ailments onto it. But that's the first item that I'm going to look to work on. It's got a good pair of boots here with T1 spell suppression, life, 30% movement speed. So these are pretty much good to go. I could gamble an Eldritch Annul to try and get rid of that regen life. But overall, these boots are pretty decent and are going to allow me to drop nodes on the tree. These are pretty much good to go. I just don't want to put them in at the moment until I've got the spell suppression in combination with my chest. And then I'll be looking for a replacement helmet. This is nice, but it's just a bog standard helmet. It's life and lots of resistances. Eventually, I want to go Omni, so it might be Black Sun Crest, which we'll come on to in a sec. But they're the 2 items that I really want to focus on. And then if we go to Omni Swap, I have had some decent stuff put together from ROG. So I had this ring, which is insane. It's 60 plus strength, dex, and intelligence, life, and big LE damage with attacks, and mana. All these things help. So mana cost might be an issue, because if we want to go Omniscience, if we can farm one, then I'm only going to have this mana cost on one ring. I can't have the mana cost on the helmet. So probably going to need to anoint mana cost on my amulet, and then we still might need to get either Divergent Inspiration or the Greater Multiple Projectiles to lower the mana cost, because otherwise I think it's going to get out of control. And we've got a good introduction belt, which is cold res, chaos res, big LE damage, maximum T1 life roll, big strength. So this would be a good belt to get me going on Omniscience. And then we've had a really well rolled Black Sun Crest drop with 12% strength, 13% dex, and 14% intelligence. If we decided we didn't want to run it, this is not the worst option. It's got spell suppression, medium dex and int, big life, but I think a Black Sun Crest is going to be better. However, this ring is huge, so we may run this helmet and put some mana cost on as an implicit. That kind of covers off what I want to do with the gear progressing. Obviously, a lot of it is revolving around Omniscience, and realistically, it is the goal for this build. There are other ways to get a bit more damage, but it would still be target farming certain things, and if I'm target farming anything, I would like it to be Omniscience, which is why I want to get my character really as good as I can on the gear I've got, so it's quicker and easier to farm both red maps and the boss. So there's a few things I want to cover before I end the video. Firstly, there'll be footage shown in the background on my last Syrian Exarch fight. It's very difficult to get an understanding of how a build performs through like highlights and stuff like that. So I thought I'd just leave the full fight running as I'm talking, because I don't want people to think that this is like steamrolling bosses. It isn't. Exarch still takes quite a while. It isn't easy. I die nearly every time because I suck at the ball phase. But I've got him down to 2 ball phases, whereas when I was non-crit, it was like 4 to 5. So I can farm Exarch, but it's still not comfortable. I can't go in and kill him without taking a death. And it's the same with some maps. Some maps, if I have horrible mods on them, are going to kill me. They might kill me 2 to 3 times. And that's why I say you need to pick the balance of whether you really need to do red maps or can you farm yellow maps. But I do want to get Exarch on some sort of farm because I really do want omniscience and it's super rare. And I thought I'd just cover off what I do as I'm progressing because I've chopped and changed the tree quite a bit in terms of a passive tree because I wanted to try different things out. As I picked up different gear, other nodes work better. So we'll go through my passive tree in a moment. It'll be very quick though because it is in the path of building if you wanted to check it out. And then what we'll also do is go through my inventory and just show you like what my currency tab's looking like, my essences, my scarabs and things like that, and my map tab. And just talk very quickly about Expedition because I've done most of the logbooks that I had that I wanted to run. And I was quite unlucky. I didn't really get anything from any of the rerolls. And Tujin just gave me bog standard currency. I think the only thing of note he gave me was 10 prismatic catalysts, which will come in handy. But I only really use Tujin to get all my currency going, so I basically never have to worry about it again. Once I'm farming altars, I'm going to be dropping things like orbs of unmaking, Vile orbs, chaos orbs, regrets, everything that I need. And then scours is the only thing I think that drops from the Eater altars. But at some point, we are going to have to switch and farm Eater altars because I am going to need some higher level embers. So let's look at the passive tree first. As I said, I have made some changes. The notable thing I've done, I've actually added in these life nodes here. Reason being, 10 life per hit and 5 per hit is actually really, really big when you've got tons and tons of arrows. I don't find leech enough on this sort of build to sustain. So I wanted a bit more sustain when mapping. So we've got 15 life gain on hit and a bit of extra life leech. Because of that, we've dropped all this area up here, which means I've had to take this little node here to get my mana leech. I've ended up taking an extra spell suppression node just to get me nearer to cap. And I've been able to drop Grace Reservation because we've gone Determination. And then we've gone back here. I think I might have dropped these nodes in the last episode, but we've gone back here to get some more damage. I'm not saying this is the best way to do it. I'm just trying a few different things as we progress through the series. So let's go and look in the stash tab. So currency-wise, we are swimming in currency. I don't have any divines because I used the only two I had, but I am comfortable now in Sanctum at item level 83. So we're going to start trying to farm some divines. We've got over 250 fusions worth of jewelers and 750 fusions here. So that's 1,000. So we're getting closer to being able to bench craft my links. I never in SSF try and link it myself if I need that chest piece because I have had experiences where I've gone 2,500 and I haven't linked and I don't want that. I'd rather just know that it's 1,500, know what my target is, and then I can link the item. Exotic currency, we've used a lot of it, but we are starting to pick up some embers, which is nice. Still not seen any tainted fusings. And as you can see, Harvest Life Force, I am using it. We're building up quite a decent stack. The yellow I want to use for either div card gambling, which I have done so far to get a set of lion cards, but it gave me the chest. The purple, I'm not sure yet. The only one that's usable is reroll more likely, but it's just nowhere near as good as when it was much more likely. And then the blue, I'm obviously using because this is what I'm using to reroll my essences. So in essences, we've really only just started this farm, so we need to obviously get more picked up, convert them into LE damage ones, and then use them on the bow. Metamorph I've hardly touched, but I'm doing it every now and again, so we are getting some catalysts together. Delirium got a smattering of Delirium orbs, but this is just from running through the mirror when it turns up on my map. Delve, I have been into Delve a little bit, just to go a little bit deeper to get to item level 83, because it might be something that we do farm in the future. And then oils, not really got a lot. I think I've done one blighted map, which come up from Kirak. I don't need any oils. I've got the anoint that I want on the amulet, but they'll come in handy at some point. In terms of 6 links, we've had another 2 strength 6 links drop, along with 4 tabulars. I've sold 3 and then we've got this one here. But other than that, not much notable in terms of drops. Had a couple of big div cards, but in SSF, they're not really that great. So if we're going to have a look at Divine Orb ones, we've got 1 Sephiroth and we've got 1 Divine Beauty. But chances of me getting 12 of those or 11 of those, super unlikely. These may as well not exist. But overall, we're in a pretty good place. Ready to move on to the next episode, which I've kind of spoiled already. We're going to be giving Ritual a go, mainly to try and get some big fractured bases or synth items, but it is probably not going to happen. But I just wanted to add something in that was a little bit different that I've not done before and that I can create some new content on. That's it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.